worked closely with the BBC and supplied the BBC throughout its history. How did Vinten get into the television market in the first place?
I managed to get up into the Royal Naval Film Unit. So it was a bit of a funny outfit actually, because film types and naval discipline didn't mix very well. But we did our best, and we made a lot of training films. After the war, I went, not the company, but I went into the film industry. And I worked at the Gate Studios for the Rank organisation. Started as a camera operator, and then went up to lighting. And a nice little studio. It had all facilities, but was very small and cheap to run. Therefore, a lot of experimental work came our way. We were the first ever company to make television cameras on the floor and a 35mm camera down in the basement recording the output of the cameras. So that was very new in those. So I had to learn to light for video cameras rather than film cameras, which was a different technique. Because of this, when Pi were developing their tubes, I think it was the Pesticon, it's someone who knew how to light for video rather than film, so I went along and did that. Then Marconi did the 4.5-inch image orthicon, and I lit for that as well. So finally I went to high definition films, which was a company set up really to persuade the government that commercial television was the way to go. Lighting for television cameras for quite a long time. See, the advantages of having to wait for tomorrow morning's rushes before you knew what today's work looked like. It's enormous. It must be the thing of the future. So I went back into the company and took it into television. Someone commented to me once, having had that experience and having a family company to go back into, and having the television industry just about to explode, if you get success of that, you ought to be shot, he said. And I suppose, there's a certain amount of truth in that. BBC Studios, Jack Kett was their chief mechanical engineer, and he and I got along very well. At that time, they were using debris and eclair film pedestals, which were really not doing the job, and they put a spec, the BBC put a very tight spec out, not to us, but to 2 or 3 other companies too, for a pedestal. A very big height range and easy to manoeuvre, and so that was the start of the 419, the whole range of our pedestals, starting with the 419. And 3-head, that came about as a result of the first spec put out by the BBC. We had a lot of work going on a mental basis, and I remember we made an Obi dolly because Queen, for her Christmas meshes, when she saw these enormous cranes that they were going to bring in, they said, well, can't you make something smaller for us? So they were, yeah, we did. We started it in, I think, around about August, and got the prototype out and a couple of models out ready for the Christmas broadcast. So we had the Heron crane, which was a hydraulic crane. That was a very sophisticated piece of equipment, but that worked well. We sold those all over the world. Still in the days of live broadcasts. There was no decent recording medium then. So the discipline on the studio floor had to be very high indeed. Yeah, of course, we also made Peregrine. It was a big step forward. In fact, I think most people think it was too big a step forward. It was a revolutionary crane which had the camera on the end of a boom and the operators down on the chassis. So the operators had to learn a completely new technique, and everything was different about it. There was a very good program made with it. Then we went back for modification. it outside the factory. Unfortunately, it was the 5th of November and a rocket went through the canvas top and set the whole thing alight. So that was the end of Peregrine.
What prompted the move from Cricklewood to Bury St Edmunds in the 1960s?
Well, it was really the increase in orders that we were getting, the reconnaissance side and the television side. The orders were rolling in and Cricklewood was just crammed. It became ridiculous. You know, people would build something and didn't have anywhere to put it. So it was decided that we must move to bigger premises. And the big decision was, of course, do we try and find somewhere in London where everybody lived and everyone knew us, or do we do what a lot of companies were doing then? Let's move out and altogether. I was given the job to find a site to relocate the company. And I looked at Basingstoke and all the way there, Newbury, Vinten, and this area too. And we Bury St Edmunds. It worked very well. We built the factory. And while it was being built, every weekend we would bus people up to Bury, just so they could see where they were moving to. And something like 75% of the London staff all moved to Bury, which was a very big proportion. So we moved 130 people from London to Bury, and the factory was built, and we did it over one summer. Like a military operation. We would the operator a day off on Friday, and he'd get home ready for moving on Saturday. We'd pick the machine, put it on a transporter up to Bury, and the morning the man and machine were both there and working. That worked very well. We lost all production. The only sad thing about it all was that my brother Charles was very much against the move. He thought the company would never stand a move like that, and it was the wrong thing. We ought to stay in London. So he became rather wanted with Vinten, so he wasn't really very much involved at that time. We did well. I think we had, so in the television world, we had 80% world market for studio equipment, which is not